As the NIO stock short war continues, I now have more companies, more entities that I'll be keeping an eye on. They've popped up on my radar. They're at the bottom of the screen: Citadel, GTS Securities, IMC Financial, and Jane Street. Now, Citadel I've talked about a lot in the past, but we're going to talk about, and I'll actually show a little bit later, where each of these companies, these entities, has a short position in NIO, filed very recently. So hang in there with me. And by the way, this is probably going to be a little bit longer video than I typically put out. So what I'll do is create some timestamps sort of to act as chapters. So you can click down below and jump through in case you don't watch straight from the beginning to the end. But now, without further ado, let's talk about a couple of reasons I'm not terribly excited about the short term for NIO stock price action, although I hope I end up being wrong. The first thing I want to point out, and I've got the fails to deliver on the screen, but this is actually the thing I want to highlight, this 22 million roughly number. This is the daily trade volume as of Friday, June 21st, 2024. And that is not a very high number of shares traded. That volume is pretty low for NIO. So if we come back now, and this is the full stock price in the history for NIO stock, the yellow lines represent the stock price and where it was trading on a particular day. The white lines represent the fails to deliver. That's when it's possible that there could have been made up, created out of thin air shares that aren't real shares at all, but that were used to suppress stock price for NIO. And I think I really like this chart because it's pretty obvious to me. There seems to be an apparent correlation with the white lines dropping off, the fails to deliver dropping off significantly, with the yellow line, the stock price moving up very aggressively for NIO, and then back down with, again, the uptick of the white lines, which are the fails to deliver. Now, one thing I would like to mention is this 5 million spike. This was reported in a single day. The problem is this is all delayed data. It's all lagging data. We never get real-time access to any of this data. And so that's why I just want to have a concept overview and an idea of what's going on. But in this case, this 5 million spike, we hadn't seen anything on a single day reported like that since all the way back before NIO stock made its big run. So I was curious what the following month would show. And it, in fact, had several days back to back to back where it looked like 1.5 million roughly shares were not able to be located. And to me, that's crazy, especially if we're thinking and fast forwarding to, again, from there, that's the lag data. But, considering how crazy is it that there could be 5 million or even 1.5 million shares that couldn't be located if only 22 million were traded in a single day? That just seems kind of suspect to me. But I'll also say this before we move on. The big picture overview, and when I saw this big move by the NIO stock price, we saw probably an average of 80 to 100 million shares traded daily. And so when we've seen some of the big moves up in the short term by NIO stock, even before it's gotten repressed or suppressed or pushed back down, perhaps by shorts, I've seen and recognized some bigger volume on those days. So that's one of the reasons I wanted to bring it up and kind of mention it. But now I want to do, and this is a special shout out. In fact, the video was inspired, this content and the topic was inspired by Project Burpees. For those who don't know, Project Burpees has been involved in the GameStop play for quite a while. So he actually has more experience in digging into some of these things than I have. And he has pointed out some very, very helpful things, given me some great resources to go and continue furthering my own education, because there's always more to learn, especially if we're talking about fails to deliver, naked shorting, and potentially, let's say, unethical rather than illegal, because there are some loopholes that market makers in some cases use and can use to get away with things that perhaps they shouldn't be able to do. Anyway, this is the comment thread between myself and Project Burpees on a recent video I had. He says, when somebody wants to trade 1,000 shares of NIO, but only 200 are available, a market maker creates 800 more and price goes down. My response was, when I see market maker, my immediate thought goes to Citadel. I've called them the suspicious short in NIO for a few years now. What surprised me, and somebody please make Marcel aware of this if he didn't, because he never responded, but he commented that Marcel, he thought that Citadel is only a market maker, and he's incorrect. And I shared several things, including the link right here where Citadel advisors showed a short position as of May 15th. And we'll get to that in just a second. But please let Marcel know in case he's not aware of this, because it's a big deal to not have that awareness. And more on that in a little bit. But this is the response from Project Burpees, and this is why I decided to do this video after I spent a little time digging into this. He says, yes, Citadel's the big one everyone speaks about. They also operate a brokerage and are applying to create an entirely new market in Texas. There are many market makers in the US with the bona fide, and this is important, so I'm going to pause, the bona fide naked short selling exemption. And they all trade between one another in creation blocks of 50,000 shares. And then he named some of these companies. And that's what I did, was just a quick cross-reference to those entities that have short positions in NIO to see how many would pop up. And the ones I've got at the bottom of the screen are the four that it was pretty obvious are shorting NIO. So Citadel Securities, GTS Securities, Virtu Americas, Cantor Fitzgerald, Credit Suisse Securities USA LLC, Flow Traders, US IMC Financial Markets, Jane Street Capital LLC, Latour Trading, OTA, Pundian. So I just did a quick, I just browsed here the most recent filings that we have. And for example, this is, here's the Citadel Advisors one that I mentioned and referenced. And here's the thing, this is maybe where people get confused or miss things, is Citadel can be a market maker. They can also set up subsidiaries and have companies, not just entities within the United States, but outside of the US. And in fact, I'll show you one with respect to Jane Street that gives a little of this breakdown and kind of furthers the I guess in a way, it's kind of like muddying the water, making it more confusing and harder to kind of dig into all of this stuff. And so in the case of this video, I didn't want to spend 5 or 10 hours digging into all this. So I only spent a couple of hours on it. I'm sure I could go further, but I probably won't. I'm not that interested. All I want to know is concept overview. Where are we at? What do I have to watch for? Sort of, that's my thinking. And that's only short term because the long term remains my play with this, with NIO. And the company fundamentally is stronger than it's ever been. They're beautifully positioned in my mind. So I do want to have, I want to continue to learn and have more of an understanding and awareness of what I want to be watching for in the short term with things like, for example, the NIO stock price action and indicators one way or another. Now, where was it? Here it is. One of the entities that Project Burpees referenced was IMC Financial Markets. And when I did a quick search of that, I just want to show you what I did. When I did an IMC Chicago LLC, it pulled this up, this IMC trading. And so that's what that is. And then if we come back over here, you'll see IMC Chicago. So it looks like that's that one. And so again, it's less clear than it maybe could be or should be when you've got like Citadel as a market maker, Citadel Advisors LLC, and they've got the short position. But here's the thing. And again, concept overview. This is the Jane Street, who we are. And down here, you'll see some of their disclosures and policies. It says, or it reads 2024 Jane Street Group LLC, all rights reserved. Services are provided in the U.S. by Jane Street Capital LLC and Jane Street Execution Services LLC, each of which is a SEC registered broker dealer and member of FINRA. Regulated activities are undertaken in Europe by Jane Street Financial Limited, an investment firm authorized and regulated by the UK Financial Conduct Authority, and Jane Street Netherlands BV, an investment firm authorized and regulated by the Netherlands Authority for the Financial Markets. And then in Hong Kong by Jane Street Hong Kong Limited, a regulated entity under the Hong Kong Securities and Futures Commission. Each of these entities is a wholly owned subsidiary of Jane Street Group LLC. So that's just part of their disclaimer. And so again, you really have to spend a lot of time if you want to dig through, kind of wade through all the muddiness of the water just to get clarity. But again, what I'm looking for and kind of just focusing on is the big picture overview. I want to have a sense and the recognition that fails to deliver are probably the best indicator we have of naked shorting that is allowed for market makers. And if market makers are joining up and doing things collaboratively, especially if we're only seeing low volume on the daily side of things, I just don't have a lot of confidence that we're going to see a very short-term stock price trend change. And maybe we have to wait for profitability. I also think the negativity with Chinese stocks overall remains in play. And so again, these are just things that I'm watching. Even when I'm checking on things, when I check in on NIO stock, for example, randomly, I'll also look at Alibaba or Baidu or EH or a number of other Chinese securities that are traded just to see what's going on. I think if or when we see Wall Street wade back in with big money, I think they're going to want to make intra-year gains. Now, maybe they think they can push things down more first, and so that's certainly possible. But I almost wonder if we won't see before the end of 2024 some positive price action, not just for NIO stock, but for some of the other Chinese stocks as well. Just that's my thought and my take. Never any kind of advice here. I'm just enjoying sharing some of the research and a little of my journey along the way. But drop it in the comments. I want to hear from you. I wanted to share some of this and offer a little bit and hopefully connect some dots. You know, it's all about continuing to learn and study for me. I never want to stop learning. I never want to stop growing and improving. And so thanks for giving me the opportunity to share a little of what I think I'm seeing and figuring out along the way. NIO remains a long-term play for me. So I'm just excited for seeing profitability, seeing Envo, the L60 release, Firefly, ET9. Let's go, NIO. Have a great day. I'll see you all again very soon.